The exact millisecond you try to force your brain to concentrate on a difficult task, a neural kill switch flips in your prefrontal cortex, actively locking you out of your highest cognitive capacity. This is the cruel biological reality of the neural effort paradox. The sheer force of your willpower is the very thing strangling your intellect. When you grip your desk and try to squeeze out a solution to a complex problem, your brain does not register a productive push. It registers a survival threat. You are essentially trying to outrun a predator while solving a chess puzzle, and your biology will choose survival over creativity every single time. In the next few moments, we are going to dismantle this self-sabotaging loop by exposing the hidden neural mechanics that govern your focus. You will discover exactly how panic-driven effort triggers a chemical cascade that shuts down your brain's creative problem-solving networks. More importantly, you will learn how to transition from a state of desperate, exhausting striving to a state of focused composure. This is the exact neural state that optimizes your prefrontal cortex for sustained, effortless concentration, much like the brain signatures observed in master meditators and elite performers. To understand why your brain locks you out when you try too hard, we have to look at the delicate architecture of your prefrontal cortex, the seat of your working memory, decision-making, and executive function. In 2009, Dr. Amy Arnsten, a leading neurobiologist at Yale University, published a groundbreaking study detailing how acute, mild stress rapidly impairs prefrontal cortical function. Her research revealed that when we experience even a subtle flicker of anxiety, such as the frustration of a difficult task or the pressure of a looming deadline, our brain releases a sudden flood of chemical messengers called catecholamines. These include dopamine and norepinephrine. Under normal circumstances, moderate amounts of these chemicals help us focus, but the moment we cross into high-effort panic, these chemicals overload our system. It stops instantly. When catecholamines saturate the prefrontal cortex, they bind to specific receptors that open tiny pores in your brain cells called hyperpolarization-activated cyclic nucleotide-gated channels. You can think of these channels as tiny biological gates. When they open, they cause the electrical signals traveling through your prefrontal networks to leak out. Suddenly, the highly sophisticated, high-speed connection between your brain cells is broken. The network goes cold. The very brain region you need to solve your problem has been offline induced by your own mental strain. Imagine your prefrontal cortex as a high-precision camera lens. When you are relaxed and composed, the lens is perfectly still, allowing the delicate autofocus mechanism to align and capture a crystal-clear image of a complex problem. But when you panic, when you strain and tell yourself that you must figure this out right now, it is as if you are violently shaking the camera while demanding that it focus faster. No matter how hard you shake it, the image will only become more blurred. The harder you strive, the more you destabilize the delicate biological infrastructure of your focus. This brings us to a devastating realization about how we work. We have been conditioned to believe that when a task gets difficult, the correct response is to push harder, to grit our teeth, and to force our way through the mental block. But neuroscience tells us that this brute force approach is a biological lie. Think back to the last time you struggled to solve a complex problem or write a difficult piece of copy. Did the breakthrough happen while you were staring intensely at the screen with your shoulders hunched and your breath shallow? Or did it happen when you finally stood up, walked to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, and let your mind drift? The hustle culture tells you that grit is a cognitive solvent. It is not. It is a cognitive cement. When you engage in high-strain, panic-driven effort, you do not just disrupt your prefrontal cortex, you also completely suppress another vital brain system, the default mode network. This is the interconnected web of brain regions that becomes active when you are not focused on the outside world. It is the system responsible for making remote associations, combining disparate ideas, and generating those sudden flashes of creative insight that make difficult tasks feel easy. For decades, productivity experts treated the default mode network as the enemy of focus, labeling it as the daydreaming network. But modern neuroscience has exposed this as a massive misunderstanding. In 2006, Dr. John Cunhos and Dr. Mark Beeman published a landmark study on the neural precursors of insight. Using electroencephalography and functional magnetic resonance imaging, they tracked the brain activity of participants solving creative puzzles. They discovered that just before an aha moment, that sudden, effortless realization of a solution, there was a massive burst of alpha wave activity in the right temporal lobe. Alpha waves are the electrical signature of a brain that is calm, relaxed, and internally focused. Crucially, they found that this burst of alpha waves was immediately preceded by a phenomenon they called a brain blink. The brain blink is a temporary suppression of visual and sensory processing. In other words, the brain deliberately shuts out external inputs to allow the quiet, delicate whisper of an intuitive solution to bubble up from the deeper neural networks. If you are staring intensely at your computer screen, desperately striving and flooding your brain with high beta stress waves, that brain blink cannot happen. You are keeping the sensory gates wide open, drowning out the very neural signals that contain the answer to your problem. You are quite literally screaming over your own genius. Now, let us contrast this with the brain of an expert meditator or a high-performing athlete in a state of flow. When neuroscientists image the brains of these individuals, they do not see hyperactive, highly strained prefrontal cortices. Instead, they see a state of profound neural efficiency, often referred to as hypofrontality. In this state, the parts of the prefrontal cortex responsible for self-monitoring, self-doubt, and effortful striving actually quiet down. The brain is not working harder, it is working with exquisite economy. When you enter this state of composed focus, your brain synchronizes its activity across multiple frequency bands. The central executive network and the default mode network, which are usually mutually exclusive, begin to work in a beautiful cooperative dance. You are focused on the task, yes, but you are also relaxed enough to allow your brain's natural associative machinery to run in the background. This is where high performance lives. It is a state of active surrender, where you provide the direction, but you step out of the way and let your biology do the heavy lifting. So, how do we translate this profound neurological understanding into our daily lives? How do we stop shaking the camera and let the lens focus? To achieve this, you must implement 3 specific brain-based protocols designed to prevent the catecholamine flood and foster the ideal neural conditions for effortless concentration. The first protocol is the 90-second vagal de-escalation. The moment you feel yourself hitting a mental wall and you notice your shoulders tensing or your internal dialogue turning into a frantic demands for results, you must immediately halt. This is not a failure, it is a strategic biological intervention. You are going to perform a specific breathing pattern known as the physiological sigh, which was first identified by scientists in the 1930s. You will take 2 deep, rapid inhalations through your nose, 1 deep breath, followed immediately by a sharp top-off inhale, and then a very long, slow exhalation through your mouth. Repeat this cycle just 3 times. This specific respiratory pattern immediately changes the pressure in your chest cavity, sending an electrical signal to your heart that activates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve releases acetylcholine, which instantly slows down your heart rate and down-regulates the sympathetic nervous system. By doing this, you flush the excess norepinephrine and dopamine out of your prefrontal cortex, closing those hyperpolarization-activated channels and restoring the electrical integrity of your cognitive networks. You are resetting the camera lens. The second protocol is the alpha state incubation interval. When you are working on a highly creative or cognitively demanding task, do not allow yourself to work in a continuous, grinding block of high beta stress. Instead, for every 45 minutes of focused work, you must deliberately schedule a 10-minute non-striving interval. During these 10 minutes, you must not check your phone, read an article, or consume any new information. Your goal is to induce the brain blink discovered by Cunios and Beeman. Step away from your desk, walk around your room, look out a window, and consciously soften your gaze, letting your eyes relax into panoramic vision. This physical relaxation of the visual system is a powerful trigger for alpha wave generation in the brain. By removing target-oriented visual focus, you signal to your brain that it is safe to transition from the central executive network to the default mode network. It is during these 10 minutes of deliberate emptiness that your brain will quietly organize the information you have just processed and serve up the solutions you were trying so hard to force earlier. The third protocol is the low-friction cadence. When you sit down to start your most challenging task of the day, do not set the goal of solving the problem or writing the perfect draft. These high-stakes goals immediately trigger the threat detection centers of your amygdala, setting off the very stress response that blocks your creativity. Instead, set your goal as a metric of low friction. You will tell yourself, for the next 30 minutes, I am going to engage with this task with absolute composure, ensuring that my jaw remains relaxed and my breathing remains slow. This simple shift in focus from the outcome of the task to the physical state of your body while doing the task completely changes the neural calculus. Your brain no longer perceives the task as a threat. Because your physical body is exhibiting the signs of safety, slow breathing, relaxed muscles, a composed posture, the amygdala remains quiet. This allows your prefrontal cortex to operate at its absolute peak, free from the paralyzing interference of catecholamine overload. You are no longer forcing the work. You are creating an internal environment where the work can simply happen. Stop and feel your jaw right now. Is it clenched? Are your shoulders creeping up towards your ears? Is your breath shallow, sitting high in your chest? If so, you are looking at the physical manifestation of the neural effort paradox. You have been treating your mind like an unruly beast that must be whipped into submission. You have believed that the exhaustion you feel at the end of a day of strained, frantic work is a badge of productivity, when in reality, it is simply the fatigue of a brain that has been fighting against its own survival mechanisms all day long. But you do not have to work this way anymore. Once you understand the delicate, elegant design of your neural architecture, your relationship with work undergoes a profound shift. You stop seeing yourself as a machine that needs to be pushed to its physical limits, and you start seeing yourself as a custodian of a highly sensitive biological ecosystem. You realize that your intelligence is not a resource to be squeezed, but a natural phenomenon that must be cultivated. When you sit down to work now, you do so with a sense of deep, quiet authority. You know that the answers you seek do not lie at the end of a pathway of panic and strain. They reside in the quiet spaces of a composed, regulated mind. You no longer fear the difficult tasks because you know exactly how to guide your brain into the precise state of neural efficiency required to dismantle them. You are no longer a victim of the effort paradox. You are the master of your cognitive state. Work with your biology, not against it. Respect the elegant design of your prefrontal cortex and let go of the desperate striving that only serves to lock you out of your own genius. In our next exploration, we are going to dive deep into a newly discovered neural pathway that dictates how your brain processes the passage of time itself and how you can manipulate this biological clock to double your daily output without ever feeling rushed or overwhelmed. Until then, step back, breathe, and let your brain do what it was designed to do.